Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free.
Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. My name is Paul LaFavor. I'm here with my ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn. Today is Friday the 7th of April, 2023, if you can believe that. Just cooking right along. I can't believe we've got 3 months down to this year. I was feeling old this last weekend, and I'm only 51, but I was feeling 61, and I just thought about how fast time flies.
And it just speeds up.
It just speeds up. It is amazing.
Yeah.
And, just those moments, when you have that moment of lucidity, when you're just really taking stock of your life and you're like, hey, I'm a grandpa, I've got these jobs, and you're just kind of looking at it. It seems like when you're a teenager, it just creeped. And then it started speeding up around 40 when my eyes started going. And then, and now
start buying the readers.
Yeah. And, something I was just doing is I was out on the range, tuning myself up, getting tuned up. And a guy who is no stranger to that, to being on the range.
Is our guest
today. Brice, welcome to the Pinelander.
Happy to be here, Mike and Paul. Thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be on today.
Yeah, and you made me think of something, Paul. And I'm gonna ping Brice here in a minute about this. But what does a guy do when he wears reading glasses like I do, and I'm out there trying to do like I used to do back in the old day, which is squaring my iron sights first. Get all zeroed in on my iron sights, and I have a choice. I can either focus the target without my readers, and I can't see my front sight post at all, or put my readers on so I can see my front sight post, and then I can't see the damn target. So I was just having a hell of a time, and I might have to ask if you guys have any solutions to iron sights and how a guy with crappy eyes deals with that.
I'm thinking red dot.
Yeah, well, that's where I went. But you still want to have your backups, right? I mean, you still want to be able to do the irons.
You got to have the backups. Yeah, go old school. But
that's
and then we got a guy old school. Brice. Brice is the founder and lead instructor for Intrepid Tactics. He is a former third group member. It was a Bushman. So Mike and I were both in third, and so. Mike and I are cut from the same cut of cloth as Brice. So, Brice, so just tell us about maybe the best way to kick this thing off is just tell us about Intrepid Tactics. Why you wanted to start that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started Intrepid Tactics. Really, I've been doing it professionally for about a year now. I started it in origin maybe 3 years ago in 2020 when all my friends and family went out and bought guns when everything shut down, right? So everyone that I knew almost bought a gun and then came to me and said, hey, how do I use this thing? Because a lot of them were new gun owners. So I started training friends and family on the side just to get that knowledge out there since it was something that I'd done for a long time. And then after I did that a bit, I realized, hey, I'd like to professionalize this a little bit more. I'd like to get to a point where I have an easier time running ranges and running bigger trainings and getting people in. So I turned it into Intrepid Tactics in 2022 and started to put on a rifle and pistol series with public classes that are open. And I've been doing that now for about a year, but it's been going pretty well. The interesting part about the founding of those sorts of courses was it really happened during that summer of 2020 when things in this area, I'm in Washington State, were pretty dicey, let's say, where, parts of Seattle were basically no-go zones and had become, chop and chaz, that whole thing that was going on. One of the students I had in one of my first courses was a guy from rural central Florida that had just moved to the edge of that zone prior to this whole thing happening with his fiance, and I get him in class, and he's like, "Man, I had no idea what I was getting into. I moved out here to Seattle, and suddenly I'm on the edge of an autonomous zone." So that was sort of the beginning of training, of trying to get people to a point where they could provide their own security in a situation where it was degrading or non-existent some of the time.
No doubt. I mean, that is realistic as it gets. And you're north of Seattle. And I think I remember driving through there. I think you're in like King County or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a little north of King County, so I do a lot of my training up in the real northwest part of the state, which is Whatcom County. But we do some training elsewhere in the state sometimes too. We got a lot of nice country out here. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of Washington State. That I remember I was out there in first group for 5 years, and you got the Cascades, you've got you got the sound there. So you can, literally snorkel, scuba, dive, free fall, ski, hike. I mean, pretty much everything within, like 100 miles. That's the slogan. But
yeah, absolutely. Same day you can be at the beach.
Yeah.
And then up on a mountaintop. And I've done that, multiple times. It's not even that long, an hour, and you're on the,
wow.
4,000 or 5,000 foot ridge line, right? So.
Yeah, so how did you get out? Are you from Washington State? I mean, you were over here.
Yep. Yeah, I'm originally from Washington State. I grew up here. Uh-huh. So after I left the military, I came back out, partially for family, partially for work opportunities. It was a booming place when I came back out this way, with the tech sector going well and just the economy and everything like that. So there was a lot of financial incentive to come back, and then also some, wanting to see family and old friends and stuff. So that was the reason for moving out this way after my time at, in North Carolina there.
So I got to ask, you went to the Q. Most guys, they try to get, if they're, most of the guys I was in first group with, they tried to get Washington State if they were from Washington State. But maybe you knew something. Maybe you wanted to see something else. I don't know. And then, maybe you got your choice of third. And is that how that worked?
I think I got told I was in third. I think you got to.
Okay, yeah, okay.
When I went through, I'm pretty sure you got to list what you wanted, and I ended up with French in third group. So.
Yeah, it seems like depending on the year, they'll fluctuate, and they'll say, "Hey, this year we'll let them pick," and then this year they didn't. So some guys are like, they weren't happy because they had their heart set on something else, but whatever.
I remember they'd have almost entire classes going to one group.
Oh yeah,
yep. So it was just like pick of the draw. I mean, if you were in that class that was, everyone was going to be going to seventh group, guess what?
Yeah.
You're going to seventh group.
Just saw that too. Yeah, a whole slew of guys. That's awesome. So now you have, did you, firsthand, did you have interaction with some of this Chaz and this chop stuff? I mean, did you, you're a little ways from that, but how did that pan out for you?
Yeah, I've mostly avoided it. I've, been to places where that sort of thing's going on before, and I didn't really feel the need to see it. But, I learned more about it secondhand. I did go through some parts of the city when that stuff was going on too. So I think the general consensus as to what was going on there, or what I would get from people as to what was going on there, that during the day, they kind of treated it like it was a block party. So the people in the city would, go there and whatever and be like, oh, it's fine, it's not that bad. But then at night, a bunch of real terrible stuff would happen. And that's eventually what got it, turned into, when they shut it down finally, it was, I think there was a shooting. So there was sort of unofficial camp security. Yeah. That was, guarding like you would a TCP or something overseas, right?
Yeah, and they had, it seemed like from what I was following, I don't want to take up our whole time talking about this, but it seemed like they didn't want law and order, but it seemed like the people of Chaz and Chop decided they needed some law and order, and then they had their own internal security. It was kind of funny how that worked.
Actually, I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seemed to me like they were kind of they had a choice. They could have just prevented it from there ever being a Chaz and a Chop. I mean, they could have went in strong arm. And I think they were kind of smart to like let these let these weirdos just kind of do their thing and almost expose themselves to the ridiculousness of the the anarchy. I mean, people just had enough of it. It's just like you said, it was a block party until it's just until the party's over.
Yep.
And it's time to get real again.
Yeah, and you had, obviously, this is what was interesting. I was curious about this too. Since you run have a range, and you're out of Washington State, and I always think, okay, how hard is that to run training, with as liberal as I think that area is, and know it is. I mean, how does that work? I mean, it's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, there are a couple different routes to do the range training out here. There's a lot of gun clubs out this way, and there's a pretty good shooting culture actually, with weekend competitions, USPSA, practical rifle, even cowboy action type stuff. So if you want to find that sort of thing on any given weekend, it's happening all around, right? It's just that it's maybe a shrinking culture a little bit, or it's changing at least in terms of the nature of it.
Right.
So I piggyback off of that a little bit and train at a gun range that's it's an old gun club that's actually pretty much in my hometown.
Nice.
So the guy that runs it's a 20-year 7th group guy, real good shooter, and they have a lot of law enforcement and stuff that train out of there. So they actually have really great facilities, and I mostly rent bays out of there. There's some other places I can train at too, but that's the primary training location for me right now.
Fantastic, and I'm looking at I've looked at your website. It looks great. You have it looks like you offer your pistol, rifle, and then some other NRA assorted classes and stuff like that. I mean, what would what is like your go-to class? I mean, it's like your basic class, your basic course.
It's a good question. There's probably two types of people that take classes with me, and one of them is your brand new gun owner, and for that it's mostly the basic pistol course, the NRA basic pistol course. It's a pretty decent curriculum, and I like to put that on just in that it gets them a lot of background knowledge that would be sort of difficult to replicate otherwise. It also gets them a certificate that is valid in some places. You can take that course with a bunch of other instructors, right? But with me, you get someone with a lot of deep knowledge in it, teaching you, the foundational skills. So for real brand new people, the pistol or the NRA basic pistol course is the one that I'd recommend. But then for people that are looking for more that tactical type of shooting, I have a pistol series and a rifle series, and pistol one or rifle one would be the place to start there if you're looking to get to that next level of proficiency where you want to really be able to shoot and move and all that.
Well, hey, I got a question for you, Brice, because we hear about some of the largest business that the gun stores are having now are actually liberals who used to be, big gun control advocates. Now are going, they're showing up at the gun store wondering why they can't get their handgun right now. They don't even like the waiting period. They don't even like the paperwork. Because you hear a lot of these gun store owners kind of laughing about it. It's just like, hey, it's the law. That's the way it works. You put your paperwork in, you come back, and you can get it. And but are you seeing that too, as far as like folks out there taking training from you? A lot of people are just maybe in the past were sort of anti-gun, but now have kind of had a change of heart.
Absolutely, I've had a lot of that. I've had especially couples and sometimes women that'll come in that realize that they don't have security being provided for them generally in society right now, and understanding that they need to learn how to do it themselves. So it's a lot of it is people that were anti-gun or were raised in an anti-gun family, and they'll say that. They'll say, hey, my parents were pacifists. They said, never, don't shoot guns, they're terrible, that sort of thing. But I realized that I need it because things are terrible around me, and I need to be able to do this. So it's one of the best experiences is teaching these people, because they're going from usually scared of the gun to being proficient with, putting holes in paper, right? But the fundamental skills that you need to be able to, draw a pistol and make a nice little group.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think And I know what you're doing. I would imagine is you're also giving people the methodology, an ideology with, that goes with Second Amendment. The how it's a privilege, and it's a right, but also a privilege to bear this arm, and also the cardinal rules and just all those things. I'm imagining you're weaving in maybe some of the.
I'll tell you something else he's weaving in.
What's that?
I don't know if you've ever seen some of Brice's videos, but he's got this sort of cool spaghetti western sort of old west drawdown music stuff with these guys. These guys freaking, and of course I'm getting into it too. I'm like, damn man, I've learned to shoot a lot of different people, a lot of different techniques, but that just seems cool, kind of having the. Wah, wah, wah,
Yeah, he's got a Wild Bill Hickok signature course.
Yeah, this is cool, because I've never taken any.
Who doesn't want to do that? I mean, with a name like that, I got to do that.
Come on, it's just fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
What other kind of tricks are you doing out there, Brice?
Yeah, so the history thing was something that I introduced to make the courses a little bit more fun for the students. I've done a lot of shooting, especially in the military, where it's a lot of repetitive, doing the same sort of drills over and over. And they're good, but it's also sometimes not that much fun.
Exactly.
Right? So I decided to theme these courses around old American gunfights and teach a little bit of American gunfighting history at the same time. So the Pistol One fight is themed around Davis Tutt and Wild Bill Hickok, which both of them fought in the Civil War on opposing sides. And then the short version of it is they had a disagreement gambling after the war had ended, and had a quick draw in, I think it was Springfield, Missouri. So they drew down roughly the same time at 75 yards. And Wild Bill is famous because he continued on. He won that fight. Davis Tutt, nobody knows about, right? Yeah. So that course I teach is focusing on a lot of fundamental marksmanship work, also on being fast out of the holster. But then we actually have students shoot out if we have the range. Sometimes we only have a 50-yard range, but if we have a 100-yard range, I get students shooting pistol at 75 and 100 yards, which is 100% doable with modern pistols. They're accurate enough. It's just getting students' fundamentals down to a point where they can group small enough to where when you go out to range, they can ring steel at that distance. So that's the fun part of that one. And then it ends in a quick draw competition where the winner goes home with as the honor grad and with usual little award like a knife.
So I had a just funny little story. So I was in 110, and we are in our little SIF company, and something we used to do was a draw. It was like a high noon type of thing, and we use Sims. So we set up your Sim pistol, and then you got your iPro on, and then about 25 meters, and you'd have a gunfight with Sims, and that was kind of fun. So you got all the fundamentals, and you're pushing speed and accuracy, and see who would actually win in a gunfight. And I don't know if you do those.
Yeah. I do some airsoft training sometimes. I don't have the sim set up, but
yeah.
This shootout that I do for the final single stage competition for that course is kind of similar. It is with live fire. Obviously, you're not drawing on each other. You're on the line together, and basically, I play the theme song from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and then somewhere in there, shot timer goes off, and the fastest guy on steel wins that and goes on to the next stage. Nice. So it's functionally kind of similar, but yeah, you're not actually getting pelted with paint or anything.
Yeah. Now, that's a lot of fun. I think, and you're also, the guys are coming out and they're spending the day with the Green Beret too. That's awesome. And you're giving them all those, basically, 6, 7, 8 hours or whatever they're getting. They're not just going out there putting holes in, paper. They're getting history, the methodology, the ideology. They're getting all that salt, that you have. Distilled knowledge of weapons handling and all that stuff, and just kind of, a lot of that's rubbing off more than I'm sure more than you know. But yeah, who wouldn't want to just go out and spend the day doing that? It's awesome. Something else I saw, Brice, if I could just shift gears, is something different on your website. Is you have a mission, and then your mission is also saying, I mean, you're open about to be faithful stewards of all that God has entrusted us. So what's awesome about that is you're nailing your colors to the mast, as they say, and you're just up front. You're saying, hey, this is the Christian values. This is what you're trying to instill. This is why you exist. I mean, if you could you tell us about that and what inspired you to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So on the Christian front, I grew up as Christian. I would say that I was sort of undecided for much of my 20s, and then more came back to faith and to the church in the last few years. And when it came to building my own company, I thought, hey, what values do I want to instill here? And while I like the American history stuff and I like firearms and gunfighting and all that could basically go by the wayside as far as I'm concerned in terms of what's most important, right? Yeah. And that is having a solid relationship with God, with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and with focusing on that,
Amen.
On the life to come, if you will.
Yeah, I love to hear that, brother. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you much. It's when it came to, hey, what am I going to put out there as my public face in all this, I decided, yeah, I'm just going to be very straightforward with who I am and what I'm doing. And I think it also, for me, in terms of what I'm teaching students, that is the defensive philosophy that I have, right? It's a protector mentality, right? And that really comes from my understanding of the Christian faith, if you will.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys you see that, they're professional, and they have these, the mantra they have is, that part of them doesn't get advertised, it doesn't get talked about. And to be, open about your faith is awesome. I mean, it's noteworthy because I actually can't think of another tactical group, a guy that would provide this type of training that would do that. I don't know about you, Mike. I can't think of somebody off the top of my head. That's awesome. So it just puts you in another field all by yourself.
Yeah, for such a long time, it's been sort of discouraged.
Yeah, it's like, don't do that.
There's certain things you don't talk about in polite company, but I think.
This is just going the other way from the wokeism, so this is great.
And I'm glad people are starting to push back. And of course, speaking of that, you got your finger on the pulse up there in the Northwest. I mean, what's going on up there? I mean, are we are you seeing sort of
what's in the water up there?
Well, I mean, you got. I mean, this has been a while now. Okay, I mean, every night I would watch, whatever the Antifa freaking thugs, trying to. Breach the perimeter, if you will, the federal building there in Portland. I mean, we watched that night after night after night. I mean, it just looked crazy.
Yeah.
And all the stuff going on in Seattle as well. Where are we at now in 2023? I mean, what are you noticing up there? Is there some pushback on this? Is there the pendulum starting to go the other direction, starting to get some sense back into the area up there, or what?
Yeah, we could talk about this one all day. I would say that in the last few years, a lot of people have left the state. It's not everyone has, obviously, but there are a number of people that have been pushed out from, lockdowns and COVID policies and politics and all of it, right? Just leaving to greener pastures, if you will. The politics are continuing apace with the trajectory that they were on a couple of years ago, in that the Democrat Party, basically, and the way I look at it, there's sort of a Marxist faction that's taken over that party and is
no doubt
running wild with it.
No doubt, yeah, hog wild.
Yeah, so they're doing exactly what you'd expect them to be doing if they had, power in the majority. So right now, the big news this week is there's a assault weapons ban and some other firearms related laws that have passed through the state house are probably going to make it through the state senate and will get signed by the governor. They're super restrictive in that they ban pretty much all semi-automatic rifles, pistols, even parts, right? So you can't even, companies like Aero Precision that are based out of Tacoma out here are maybe going to be in a real hard spot, right? Where they might kill their entire business, or they'll have to move. I don't know what they're going to do, but they are locking down real hard on that. And then they're pushing on, pretty much every front. Aside from that too, there's a decision that just came down today with the state Supreme Court that was, for a long time, we haven't had a state income tax out here. And they've kind of found a workaround by doing a capital gains tax that the state Supreme Court held up, and that'll end up getting used as sort of a backdoor into running wild with taxes around here. So there's a bunch of stuff like that that's going on, and the pushback hasn't effectively happened yet in this state. I don't think that the people that are resistant to this stuff really have an avenue to do it right now. So there are some people running for seats in the state. You got like Joe Kent down in he's down in the Vancouver area. He was a fifth group guy that he lost his congressional bid last time around, but I think he has a pretty good shot at winning a congressional seat this next time around. But the state politics, I don't think that the people that are in opposition to some of the craziness that's going on right now really have a clear route available to them to reconcile some of it.
Wow. I mean, a couple of things that came to my mind was, I would assume at this point that they would not want, ranges like yours to exist. So for you to be out there in existence, it's kind of an anomaly in my mind, something out there. So that's awesome. And the other one is that it's also good to see that people out there are still going to ranges. So, because if you listen to you watch the news, you can get all pessimistic and go, everybody out there sucks. And
I think,
because it's just the narrative that's pushed.
I think it's not really a pushback that's going on. I think what I'm seeing is almost, people are sort of regrouping and internalizing, and just kind of, what I see is a whole bunch of people sort of preparing.
Yeah.
And developing their alternative parallel type economies. They're starting to make decisions within their own families. They're starting to, I hate to use the word prep, but that's what they're doing. They're kind of prepping, right? They're kind of prepping for harder times. They see that, inflation's out of control and things like that. People are planting gardens. I think there's a lot of activity going on. It's not, it's not going into Portland or Seattle and, going head to head with Antifa or BLM, because it just seems like a waste of time. People I think are just kind of starting to develop their communities and their families, and starting to sort of focus on getting small and getting right with God, and kind of getting prepared.
What do you think? What do you think of that, Brice? Does that kind of resonate?
That? Absolutely. I think that's the silver lining to all this, is that there's a bit of a loss in trust in, I don't know, maybe the systems that have been in place for a long time, and a bit of a return to self-reliance or reliance on local communities. I definitely see a lot of people banding together, and it's not something that you're necessarily going to be able to visibly see anywhere from outside, but people are doing it on the ground. The pressure of being in this area is actually causing people to form really tight bonds and tight groups in a way that you probably wouldn't get if you're retreating to a friendly area, let's say. So there is a silver lining to that, and I think somehow that's going to be the future of whatever comes next. I don't know exactly what that's going to be or what form it's going to take, but those people that feel like they're under pressure, under fire like that, are building at the smallest level they can and going from there.
Yeah, if some people have their way, God help us, what it would look like. But yeah, I think this is actually really good for people like me, because I have a bent towards being a cynic, and I look at everything and go, everybody just sucks, But but there are a lot, millions of half or more than half of our country that actually thinks like us, that doesn't like the way these things are going, and they do want to go back to our grassroots that our country was founded at, and have skills skills like the skills that Brice is teaching out there, and they're looking at like, hey, 911, that's going to take a couple of days, forever, and they'll just let people do that retardation they did in Chaz and Chop. Then why would they think somebody's going to, the cavalry's coming? It's not going to happen, and so they're wising up. That's great. I think, I mean, like I was saying, I don't. When I think of Washington State, because I lived up there for 5 years, there's something in the water, and I think it is. I mean, it's kind of a wild thing because you had. And this is kind of maybe a stretch, but I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was that said this, but there's some stuff on the books out there that like you could just slug it out. It comes from people going all the way west. I kid my wife. She's from Montana. I was like, well, they kind of chickened out. They didn't want to go all the way to California or Oregon or Washington. And so they stopped in Montana. But some of the people that went all the way out there, there's a wild side to that West Coast that's like passed on, like maybe the self-conscious, the collective unconscious of the people out there are a little wild. I don't know.
Well, well, I mean, I guess the kind of people that immigrated and picked up and traveled, and the kind of families that kind of stock the type of DNA and the people that went west. Taking the big gamble. Yeah. So it's obviously the people are wired a little different. I've loved it out there. It's absolutely beautiful country.
That's definitely the cut of cloth that Brice is. I mean, there are a lot of people like that have just, they're like, hey, look, we're the people that were pioneers.
Right. There's a pioneer
we
spirit.
ate the Donner Party and we kept going. Those type of folks. We don't have. This is how we roll, and we're not going to have any more Chops or Chaz sprouting up.
Yeah, well, and of course you got it, and you have
we're
have
getting
a
real
lot
here.
Well, you have a lot of affluence too. You have a lot of affluence in Seattle, and you have a lot of affluence out west, and I think that's part of it too. Because you always have the children of the affluent. That always, you see that in Washington D.C. You see that everywhere. The elite kids, if you will, and they do have a tendency to, act up and are looking for culture, I guess you could say, looking to mix it up a little bit, find some excitement, try to figure out whatever cause that their professor talks them into in school. So you get a lot of that too out there.
Oh yeah. But so there is no plan in the works to like shut you down, Brice. I mean, there's not something like
that would be impossible.
You got. I just happen to think someone. The mayor of Seattle was like, "This is the summer of love."
You can set up a range anywhere. I mean, if you go outside the city limits to set up a range. I mean,
I used to say that though. This is America, Jack. But then you see stuff like that, you go, I don't know. So it seemed like, I mean, from your knowledge, there is nobody, that's. You got a UW campaign to like shut you down, right? Or anything like that.
No, there's nothing like that right now. There are some ranges I know that have had a hard time with maybe environmental regulations and things like that, where I know one where part of the range got shut down because of, they hadn't recycled lead for a long time, that sort of thing. But for the most part, I think ranges aren't under attack right now. So, who knows in the future if they go after rangers or training. Actually, in a kind of odd way, one of the bills that was going through the state house recently was it was originally a license to purchase one, and I think they were changing it to for firearms, and I think they were changing it to a requirement that you take a safety class with certain things in it, and they passed something like that before that was sort of ill-defined and not really enforced. But in an odd way, it might actually send more people my way, if they push some of that stuff through. But who knows?
So, I mean, what else to like? I was curious about this because I did probably a couple of years. I worked for a company, and I would teach pistol carbine, and then we would talk about the kit that you use but one of the ideas that I'm sure you do this too is talking about how not to be a victim, and then having awareness and And I was just curious how you bring that into that, the mindset of a shooter and, something like that, like a warrior mindset. Do you have an aspect where you bring that into the training?
Absolutely. Some of the history classes are meant to do that. And then it's talking about, hey, here's a historical example of when this happened. So the Rifle One course that I run is based off of this couple, Thomas and Hannah Dustin, that were Puritan settlers in then colonial America, controlled by the British in 1697, Haverhill, Massachusetts today. And they were basically raided by an Indian Abenaki raiding party, and had to, Thomas Dustin grabbed his rifle, protected his kids, and got, I think, 8 of them out of town. And then his wife was captured, but then later escaped captivity. So she's got this famous story. You can look it up, Hannah Dustin, where she basically killed her captors and took a canoe back to her husband. So things like that teach a little bit the mentality of, that's a refuse to be a victim story if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, I teach people for a living too, and when you can, give examples, a realistic, real life example, that just sticks. People love stories, and when you have like a legit story like that, that just brings it to life. Everything you're saying. And then the other thing is, I would love to hear something about your experience from Afghanistan. I mean, I have no doubt that you use aspects of your experience and you work that into the training. Can you share some of that with us?
Of course. Yeah, so I did a couple trips over to Afghanistan, and my trips were mostly in rural areas where our team was the only team around for a long time. There was no one else coming for us. It was the Wild West, and some of the stuff that happened, I still think back on, and what was that?
Yeah.
What was going on out there? So the chaotic nature of that place, and also understanding that warfare doesn't always take exactly the form that you expect it to. A lot of what was going on with us was, for lack of a better term, kind of fourth generation stuff where, it was guys taking pot shots at us or trying to bait us into IED initiated ambushes, things like that. And us trying to not get baited into those and then roll up these guys in, some other way. So I had some real practical experience that way that I think really reinforced in terms of, yes, this is how this worked for me in the past. This is how you can set yourself up for success, not just in a tactical way, but also in sort of a strategic way in terms of setting up the situation that you find yourself in.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point that, war hardly ever takes the form that you think it would or you expect it would. That's true. I mean, you can do everything you can to put your best foot forward tactically, but then, you're just going you're going to roll into something that you may not always be, expected. But yeah, that's the thing about being out there in the Wild West. I remember so you're talking like, 06, 07, 08, time frame in Afghanistan, something like that. And then you're out there. Yeah.
Yeah. 2009, 2010, I was over there. It's more the time frame. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you guys get zipped up, you're talking, and there's nobody really, there's no cavalry to the rescue. I mean, you got what you got, right? I mean, whatever you could put on the truck is what you got. And if your plan sucked, then, you could get encircled by the natives, and then it could be bad. But yeah, I have, and there's a lot of guys that do training, a lot of SF guys that do tactical training, but that's one thing I don't see a lot of is guys that do that incorporate those experiences like you're doing. I think that's definitely nuanced, to actually bring that in. I imagine you create scenarios, that will replicate, what maybe not in Afghanistan, but what people would go through in, Linwood, what they would go through in like a CHOP scenario, stuff like that. I mean, could you, I mean, what basically like you said, you're getting, and this is what kind of let me just describe this, something I would get like a soccer mom, and she wouldn't be able to load the rounds into the magazine the right way. That's at 9:00, and then, by 4 or 5 in the afternoon, she's doing turns, she's moving, control pairs, 3 targets. I mean, this is kind of what you're doing, right?
Yep, a lot of the same stuff, just as you described there. I find that getting people really comfortable with the safety aspect of it and the fundamentals of it is the most important thing. Because after that, everything flows pretty easily. Then it's just teaching them new techniques.
Exactly.
But getting them, understanding how the firearm works, how you can handle it safely, so that they know, what those are the things that are in the back of people's heads that are making them nervous if they don't know it, right? If they're not comfortable with it. So getting that down solid, and then going into the more tactical end or the more use of force end of things. I also like to stress to people that the way I view carrying a firearm, I don't actually enjoy it personally. I feel it's a burden. Like, I feel it's a responsibility of mine, because I've trained it for a long time, and I provide security for myself and those around me, and it's something I ought to be doing. But it's also not fun in some ways, and then I've got this big old hunk of metal that I got to carry on my body all the time, and I got to be worried about, the local regulations and the status of the firearm and all that sort of stuff. So it's not like it's shooting can be fun, but I think that there's a responsibility and a burden that comes with carrying a firearm that I like to stress to myself.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just jump on that, because that's something that's not stressed a lot. A lot of people, they go off on these tirades against, assault weapons and, whatever. They want to ban this, that, and the other. But it's an ancient right to bear arms. Okay, it's part of being, in the warrior cultures. Let me just go off on a little mini tirade here. But the idea is, it was not any bloke could do that. You had to demonstrate responsibility. You had to demonstrate that some maturity, that you're entrusted with the right.
Well, I think
to carry that.
I think Brice used the right word.
Yeah.
Which is responsibility, which is you have a duty.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that people that are talking about, getting rid of guns, really what I always hear them is just shirking their responsibility as an American citizen. What they're wanting to do is they don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
They don't want to be bothered with it. They want to defer that to somebody else. It's always the same way with the left. To me, it's always laziness and a deferment of responsibility. You have a duty and a responsibility as an American to protect yourself and protect your family, and guarantee your rights and your liberties.
Yeah,
you can't just sit around and wait for someone to open the door for you and make sure the temperature's okay, and bring you something to drink all the time. I mean, you're going to have to get up off your butt, and to me, I think you captured it by using that word responsibility. I mean, you're absolutely right. No one walks around with a handgun because it's fun. It's a pain in the butt. I mean, it's an extra piece of freaking kit or an extra piece of something that you got to hang on your body.
Yeah, and when I was saying right, I don't mean like R-I-G-H-T. I mean R-I-T-E, an ancient right.
Oh,
it's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, right.
A rite of passage as a man, as a woman, as a mature adult, that you're handling that weapon and you understand its capabilities. Mm-hmm. And that,
which takes some work.
Yeah, it takes some work. And so I think that's absolutely lost on the left. Absolutely. For those reasons you just articulated and possibly more. But, what do you think about that, Brice?
I couldn't agree more with you guys. It's something that I think is easy for people that have had security provided for them for their entire life to miss. Yeah. And that people are starting to rediscover as the security that they're used to just having and taking for granted is rapidly disappearing from their daily lives.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, that's and so I mean, the duh thing here is the aha moment is people need to rediscover that, like you were talking about earlier is not only just get off the teat, get off the government teat, get off of the Walmart mentality. You can just get whatever you want, and and just run down to the store, and then looking at being more self-supporting, circling your wagons if you have to.
Yeah, no one's going to protect your kids for you. You have to protect your
or
kids.
Raise them for you.
I mean, it's just you're gonna.
It's still your responsibility.
I know it sucks. I got it. You'd rather play on your phone, but you're actually going to have to take care of yourself and take care of your family.
Yeah,
and I think you're absolutely right, Brice. People are really starting to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean this is hopefully a big wake up call when we've had stuff like the Summer of Love and Chaz and Chops going on. People thought, well, that's absolutely insane.
I thought we did that back in the 60s. I mean, we're doing this again. I mean,
I would think that your numbers, for your enrollment would have gone up.
Well, see, now that's my big question because I think, obviously you're doing, the basics, which is, okay, here's how to safely, handle your firearm. Okay. But to me, are you seeing a need for, beyond that, into sort of small unit tactics sort of realm?
Definitely. I'd say that there's a large number of people in this area that are starting to train beyond just simple firearms use. And I don't really offer a ton in the way of public courses that way at the moment. I do some training in that fashion from time to time with some people. But there are definitely a lot of groups around, especially young men. There's a whole subculture that is very into watching YouTube videos, getting into sort of military style, patrolling and CQB and that sort of stuff, and then going out and just doing it on their own. They're practicing this stuff and learning it on their own, and then taking courses with, instructors and getting the best knowledge that they can that way. So I see a lot of that, and a lot of the guys that I have in classes are in that realm, if you will.
Is that just in our DNA?
I don't know. I think so. I think that it is, especially right now, for a lot of people, having a nice rifle and being good at it it's sort of almost replacing like the status symbol of having a nice phone from a few years ago or having a nice car from a few years before that, right? A lot of young guys are putting their kit together, and that's the thing that they're doing as their weekend activity.
Hey, so I think you cover this nicely in one of your podcasts. It's entitled "Gunfighting is the American Martial Art." I mean, that just kind of sums it up.
That's what I was wondering. I mean, to me, it just seems like
it is.
We've traveled. I've traveled the world. I mean, all three of us have. And
we have more guns than anybody.
It just seems like this is the kind of things that you always see Americans sort of into.
Yeah.
So I just asked the question. I mean, is this sort of like a uniquely American sort of, the way we kind of do things, the things that we're into, fast cars and,
I think so. I think that I train martial arts too. I've done some jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and spent a good deal of time in the gym doing that sort of thing. And people in those circles sometimes get really into foreign martial arts, traditional karate or taekwondo or whatever it is. And they miss sometimes that America has a very strong martial tradition. Mm-hmm. Our martial arts aren't necessarily in the same structure that, say, Okinawan karate was passed down on, or jiu-jitsu or something along those lines with the lineages and the structures for doing things. It's a little bit more freeform and a lot more focused on practical fighting. So, American style wrestling, freestyle wrestling is, or Western boxing or the, close quarters stuff. But for the entire history of the United States, we've had firearms, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the way that the older gunfighting used to take place, you didn't really have a ton of, you didn't have a magazine and a semi-automatic rifle. You had a single shot and then a revolver, right? Sort of a thing. And then you would go to work with a Bowie knife and a tomahawk. That was the close quarters aspect of it. So we actually do have a really strong martial gunfighting tradition, and I think that is the American martial art. It's just that the close up, hey, we're going to box or we're going to wrestle, just never really factored into the equation as much because in the practical sense, that wasn't the sort of fighting that people were doing. They were taking out their Bowie knives after their pistols went dry.
Yeah, I think something else that it probably needs to be said too is what you instill is, the pistol, the rifle has no moral stature of its own. It has no will of its own. It's an instrument, so you're training your mind as an instrument. Our minds are the most powerful weapons we have, right? And then these are just tools, just like you said, Bowie knives, pistols, rifles, whatever, freaking spears, whatever. And then the idea is,
I think the tomahawk is.
Tomahawk.
I think the tomahawk.
Yeah.
Is making a comeback.
Tomahawk's good because we're gonna hack. Yeah.
You can hack them up with the tomahawk.
Oh yeah.
But I'm seeing more and more tomahawks. It just seems like the thing is just coming back.
It's like we're going back to the colonial times. And I'm all for it. Maybe.
I think tomahawks are
Let
cool.
me keep my refrigerator though.
We got the place right down the road where you drink a beer and throw tomahawks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you get any more American than that? Drinking beer and throwing tomahawks.
Yeah. What else? Could you say to that? This is your forte.
Yeah, absolutely. I think places have a bit of a form to them, and the history that gets passed on about those places is extremely valuable. When we were in Afghanistan, for instance, the Afghans knew where the best ambush points were. They didn't need a handbook or even to do a recon for site selection or anything like that. They just knew it because they'd done it to the Soviets and the British and all the way back to Alexander the Great, right?
Yeah, Khalid, head to the ambush site. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, they're almost like even as a toddler, there's this sort of less automatic. This is where you get them at right here. You can just read the terrain.
Yeah, that's where Grandpa laid an ambush on the Soviets.
That's
whatever,
right. That's right.
Yeah, so I think that same thing is true of North America. There's a history to the continent, a history to the place, and we haven't focused on it as much in recent years. But I think as we focus a little bit more on domestic affairs, on our own families and the places that we're from and the things that are going on here, returning to that focus on less the edges of the empire, if you will, way off in some other part of the world, and more on, hey, what did happen in the Yakima Indian War in Washington State, right? Things like that, where there's history to pretty much any part of the United States that's absolutely fascinating and will tell you, a lot about the form of society and warfare and everything like that place shapes.
You've got kids, Brice. What challenges are you facing out there, and how are you raising your kids in this sort of environment? How are you the secret Brice family tricks that you're employing successfully in your own family to try to keep everybody on the right path? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really important one, right? Because our families are the future more so than ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's a challenging one. I think that's one that especially my generation, I have small kids still, they're pretty young. So a lot of outstanding questions there as to, should you homeschool? Should you go to private school? Right now I do private Christian school for my kids, but even that and some of those, you got to wonder, is it going to get taken over by some faction that you don't like that starts pushing something down their throat? So a lot of people are doing homeschool too. And a lot of people are really worried about what's going on with, parental rights. That's something that's been pushed in the state a lot recently, is removing parental rights. And in public schools now, there's a lot of stuff that, I think starting at maybe 12 years old that kids can do without their parents' knowledge. That is pretty alarming. So, I think definitely staying away from some of that, or at least understanding how to manage it, is the question of the day for my generation of parents, if you will.
Are you guys seeing a uptick in homeschooling? Because I know there's, at least from the various different articles that I've been reading, a lot of states are seeing a lot of kids getting pulled out of public school systems. So much so that in some of these articles, they're actually having to do layoffs and things like that in some of these county districts because there's just not enough students. Are you seeing some trends like that out in Washington?
That is happening in Washington State. In largest school districts in the state, they are closing down schools because they don't have the enrollment numbers that they used to do or they used to have, and the state ties money to enrollment numbers. I don't know that it's a ton of schools yet, but they have done it, and in recent weeks, there's been some news about that has people up in arms if their school's getting closed down, for instance. So if your neighborhood elementary school's getting closed down, that might be a problem for you. So that is happening. If that is attributed to people moving out of the area or working remotely somewhere or homeschooling their kids, I don't know that I could fully say. In my own circles, a lot of people are starting to homeschool. I don't know how broad that is across the state, though.
Hey, so what else is new for you? I mean, what's coming down the pike for you, Brice? What are you working on? What's your big project?
Yeah, so one of the things I've got going on is I got a big shipment of books in from you guys recently. So I'm going to be putting the full selection of Blacksmith Publishing books on the site in the next week. I've got them in. I have not listed them all up there yet. So I got a lot more of the SET books, which sold really well. People are really interested in those, and I think they like buying them from a source that isn't, one of the big booksellers. So happy to be able to do that. And then the other ones, I was kind of going to see just what sells and then restock from there. So that's a big one. Starting to do a little bit of retail on the site and trying to get some products and some some books out there that are maybe going unnoticed because it's from smaller publishers and that sort of thing, right? So trying to do my part in terms of getting the word out on what you guys are doing with Blacksmith Publishing and what a lot of your authors are doing. So that's coming up in the next week. I've got some classes coming up. I'm doing a rifle 2 course tomorrow. Got another rifle course in a couple months, and then I've got to get the schedule turned out for this summer. So that's not public yet, but I'm working on getting that together for all the classes that we'll have going on in June, July, and August.
Fantastic.
And how do people get up with you, Brice? You got any social media handles, or is it just through the website, or how do people get up with you to figure out what your class schedule is and all that?
Yeah, class schedule's on the website. I do private training and consulting too. So if you're interested in that, you can reach out to me through the contact form on the website. I also have social media. I'm active on Twitter and Instagram. Don't do as much social media, but it is there, if you want to follow what we're doing a little bit. So that's how you can get a hold of me. I update the website as soon as I got classes scheduled. So there'll be some new ones posted on the front page before too long.
Fantastic. What an honor that you're carrying our book. Let me just say that. I think that's awesome. I think, I never thought that I guess it just kind of widened my aperture a little bit that, more than just guys going through the pipeline can get something out of that book. And I think that, that they definitely can. And I think you saw that. That's awesome. And guys, intrepidtactics.com, Brice is a wealth of information. He's got a lot of experience to offer. And then in addition to the courses he has, we have the books, he's got the blogs at the podcast. So go on there and check it out, intrepidtactics.com. Brice, it was an honor for having you on the podcast today. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. The honor's all mine. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, man. God bless you, brother. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander podcast. If you enjoy our unique content, please consider supporting our sponsors. SOF News, providing special operations news from around the world. It's where Paul and I go to keep abreast of what's going on within the SOF community. Check them out at sof.news. Blacksmith Publishing, been serving the warrior class since 2013. They have great titles written for warriors by warriors. If you're looking for excellent reference material or just want to unwind with a great novel, be sure to check out the bookstore located at blacksmithpublishing.com. And if you're looking for some cool Pinelander apparel, head on over to the general store located at pinelandergeneralstore.com. That's all one word, pinelandergeneralstore.com. Have a great selection of shirts, hats, jackets, sweaters, stickers, patches, artwork, and a whole lot more. Check out the store at pinelandergeneralstore.com. If you're interested in helping develop our country's next generation of warriors, please consider donating to the American Agoge Project. The mission of the project is to foster an environment producing able-bodied citizen warrior men of fine character. And we'll be officially launching the project in 2023 in celebration of Blacksmith Publishing's 10th anniversary. Until our next meeting, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and socially astute. To each other we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May God continue to bless Pineland.